presented here are intended to assist in developing a strong and profitable business for Amway IBOs affiliated with Markham Productions. For the calendar year 2023, the average income from Amway for all U.S. registered IBOs at the Founders Platinum level and below was $841 before expenses. See www.amway.com/income-disclosure for details and the most up-to-date information. Earnings depend on many factors, including customer base, business experience, effort, dedication, and quality and performance of the downline sales team. Enjoy the following message.
So this talk probably is going to sound like you think it's going to sound. You guys know the title? I think it's on your schedule, or no? Okay, it's called The Big Commitment. And I'm going to share my view. I'm going to share my feeling about this topic. And it'll probably be a little different than some people expect, because I think that there is sometimes some assumptions that get made that put us into places that aren't always the most healthy. There are assumptions that are made that everybody's experiencing the business or even this conference the same as everyone else, depending on the way they're looking at it. And the reality is, and I'm sure you've heard me say this, that reality isn't objective. A huge percentage of what you're experiencing in your life is the subjective story you're telling. It's the way you're interpreting things. It's the words you're using privately and publicly. It's the way that you look at things. So for some people, a commitment is a prison. That's how they look at it. To some people, the word commitment is going to make them feel trapped. It's going to make them feel limited. It's going to make them feel like they have a loss of freedom. And they're going to have a negative connotation to what that word means. But every word has different meanings to different people. So the big commitment, you've heard it framed different ways. But the big commitment to me is the time that you make a decision that this is the mountain that you've chosen to climb in your life. That this is the summit that you are going to look to scale. That this is the challenge that you are going to use to sharpen yourself against, to become the most valuable and successful person that you can for yourself. And I think very often people fail to recognize some of these analogies. Anything you want to say in between before I go on to my next point? They fail to maybe understand the analogy. If you go to climb a mountain, if you say, hey, I want to climb Mount Everest, most people are going to ask you why. Why do you want to climb Mount Everest? You could die. I mean, it's like really high. It's going to be terrible torture. Like, why would you do that? And the people that ask why someone wants to climb a mountain, it's not their mountain. And there is no answer to give them. So when you choose to scale a mountain like this, I think for me, the big commitment doesn't mean that you are going to sacrifice your life on the altar of success or greed or a pin. The big commitment to me doesn't mean that you hide your workaholism behind some type of fake noble cause. I believe that the big commitment means that you decide that this is the thing that I've decided that I want to do with my life. And I may or may not make it to the peak. I may not be the person that scales the mountain because there's a lot of unforeseen things that happen. There might be a storm near the top that prevents you from getting there that's not fair. There might be equipment failure. You might get sick. You might get hurt and just take the wrong step. I can't guarantee anyone's success. No one can. It's an important part of our QAS that you can't tell anyone they can going to guarantee to hit a level. But I think that the most important thing to realize is that if you think you need to hit a level to validate who you are going to be in danger of accomplishing the trophy and missing the prize. Because the prize is who you become in the pursuit of something worthy of your attention. But very often I see people achieve a level, and it could be 3-6, whatever the level is. Let's say Q12. But whatever the level is, you can get the trophy and have the pin, and you can sacrifice everything that matters for something that doesn't. So for me, the big commitment means that you say, this is what I want to do for the sake of doing it, not for the sake of a result, not for the money, not for the fame, not for the food backstage. I'm doing this. It's delicious. I'm hungry. You're doing this because you decide this is what I want to do. And what it should do for many of you is it should free you from this unnecessary prison of shame and guilt and failure. Because no one here is failing. You're here. I know a lot of people that have won the game and aren't winning. You have to decide what it is you want your life to look like. I believe the fact that you're here, you're either curious about what this mountain looks like, or you've decided that this is the mountain you want to climb. And I hope after this weekend, for some of you at New, that you've maybe caught a vision for maybe a person you can become, maybe the direction you can go. Maybe you've found hope that maybe you can find the kind of people that you want to build true, lifelong, lasting relationships with. Because I think that relationships and friendships are some of the most valuable thing, if not the most valuable thing on the planet. Maybe you found a place and a vision where you said, man, I feel like I'm accepted here, and this is the thing I want to do. Maybe you have always had a desire to be better, but you didn't have a vehicle to sharpen yourself on that you felt was worthy of your commitment or that was worthy of your efforts. Maybe you've been looking for a cause to be a part of. Maybe you once were part of a cause. You were part of a great sports team. Or maybe you were part of the armed forces, who we thank tremendously for the freedom we have here. Maybe you were part of a movement or a church or a mosque or some type of idealistic movement. Or maybe you've done something politically that you felt strongly about. And maybe you decided that, you know what? This is the thing I want to build, and this is where I want to go. No one knows what the journey is going to look like, and nobody's journey is the same. But if you decide that you're doing something for the sake of doing it, it no longer matters where you end up. And when you grasp too strongly, and when you need something, and you don't practice non-attachment, that thing puts you in a prison of your own making. And it's not what you need to do. A lot of people are chasing success. I don't think the big commitment is chasing success. Things you chase run away. If you run around the park trying to chase the ducks, which is fun for a little while, in my opinion, and if you haven't done that since you're young, I suggest trying it sometimes, because I think that the most valuable things in life are the small pleasures like that. I think many of us start to, in the sake of efficiency, start to delete all the things that bring joy to your life. But if you chase those ducks long enough, you're gonna get tired and start blaming the ducks. If you just sat on a bench, quietly, stilly, with the right food for long enough, you'd have as many ducks come to you as you want. So the big commitment is getting committed to becoming the person you need to be to attract the success that you want, to attract the relationships that you want. When you stop going out trying to get people for your agenda, and you start to go out to look to serve people and to add value to their life. When you're going out to achieve something that you've never achieved before, it's like going out into the wilderness. And I haven't played video games in a long time. I used to play a lot when I was younger. But I think it still works that when you start in a lot of video games, you don't have any optics in the map. So it's like a little darkness and you have to explore territory. And because of the sake that you don't have the optics of the map, you're very vulnerable because you don't know where you are, you don't know what's happening around you. Anytime you go out and accomplish something in your life that you've never accomplished before, you have to go out into the wilderness, which is dangerous and uncomfortable and you've never done before. And there's going to be bears, and there's going to be lions, and there's traps, and there's things that can happen. But if you stay in the comfort of your little teeny tiny life, you miss out on all of the blessings and all of the amazing adventures that can happen. But until you've done something, you can't do it. It's why it's very important that you do hard things you've never done. I love to run. You guys heard me talk about it. I ran 16 miles on Friday. There's 2 reasons. Thanks, Gerald. I have to apologize publicly to Gerald because he's like, hey man, he's running an ultra marathon. He's like, hey man, let me know if you're running. And I thought to myself, well, I haven't run 16 miles and I'd like to potentially fail privately before I run with Jeff. So I kind of no-showed him. So it was my own inadequacies, Gerald. It wasn't my love for you. But I ran the 16 miles.
Caitlin.
What?
With Caitlin. She was there.
I'm getting there, hon. Thank you so much. You think I was going to cut her out of the story?
Here should be said.
For 2 reasons. The first one was because Caitlin Clark's training for the New York City Marathon. She happened to be on the plane. Yeah, give her a hand. She happened to be on the plane and had a seat next to me and Callan, which was super serendipitous. We had the whole row because nobody told me when I got married I'd sit in the middle seat for the rest of my life. Who got married and didn't realize for the rest of eternity they'd be in the middle seat on a plane? I didn't realize that. It doesn't go by gender roles. It just goes by sensitivities to motion and all sorts of different things. You know, genetics. But anyway, Caitlin said she was going to run 16 miles. I'd never run 16 miles. I ran 15 twice. But I said, I'll run for you because I wanted to run a marathon this year, and I'm probably going to do one in November is one of my goals. So the first reason I ran the 16 miles is because I was there to support Caitlin and somebody asked me to. The second reason, and by the way, I find that some people, when people share anecdotes, they sometimes are like, yeah, what's the point? The anecdote is the point, so don't miss it. Secondly, I'm just not talking to you about running for fun. You're like, what does it have to do with business? Also, by the way, if you have a GIF keyboard, it's called Tenor, T-E-N-O-R, and it comes up GIF keyboard. If you search Amway, there's about 10 different GIFs of all different people. One of them, they like this, you know, some funny GIFs on there. You can use it in your life. Pro tip. Second reason I ran, was because I told a bunch of people I was running 16 miles. And I knew in the middle of the 16 miles, I was going to want to quit. But I also know myself, and I know that if I tell a bunch of people, my pride's too strong to quit if I tell someone else. My discipline isn't strong enough to run 16 miles solo. But my pride is strong enough that if I tell someone else I'm going to do something, that I do it. And there's a few things I want to talk about on the run, because there's the public and then there's the private. The public thing is like, oh my God, you ran 16 miles? People are like, yeah, buddy, you ran 16 miles. No problem. No problem. And that's what it sometimes looks like when people are fronting on Instagram and stuff about success. And one of the worst things you can do is try to manage your image and not be honest about what success looks like in different things, because it makes people feel confused. So here's what running the 16 miles looked like. I started the run. I said, okay, this is a terrible idea. It is so hot. And we left at like 10:30, 11, and we like literally left at the worst time. And I'm like, this was a terrible idea. So we start running, and in the beginning of most runs, you're like, this is really long. At about 4 miles, I said, if we don't stop to drink something, I'm gonna die. So we stopped. But then usually for me, at about mile 7 or mile 8, you get the runner's high. So you start kind of like tentative on a journey. Like, I think I can. You think enough that you can make it, that you try. And then you start going, and you start maybe thinking to yourself, this was a terrible idea. And then in the middle, you're like, oh no, this is it. I got it. This is gonna be totally fine for the rest of the time. Because it always feels like the season you're in life is forever. And when you act like that, you make bad choices. So when people are down, they expect they're gonna be down forever. And when you're up and things are good, you feel like things are gonna be up forever. It's why people, when gas prices go down, they buy SUVs. When gas prices go up, they buy Priuses. As if they're never going up or down again for the rest of their life. I'm gonna make this 5 or 10 year commitment based on today's gas prices. At about, I don't remember where it was, but there was a point where I took a second, I said, let me just cry for a second here. This is horrible. I don't know if I can get my legs to move another step. At one time I said, you know what? Maybe I should just say, screw this. And I ran past the 7-Eleven and I said, if I don't go to that 7-Eleven, I'm gonna die. And I ran back to the 7-Eleven. And I'd lost Caitlin. Caitlin's way faster than me. And she happened to be at the 7-Eleven. I was like, perfect. She's like, oh, you took a break? I'm yeah, just taking a quick break. When you start on a journey, you're not equipped enough to complete it. So very often, you just need to have the hope that I'm gonna try. So you don't need to know you're gonna go 3.6. You can't, you haven't if you haven't, or 6.15 or platinum or fill in your blank. But you need to have enough faith that I'm gonna try. And I may or I may not make it. And I am not enough right now. I don't have the resources right now. But what I've found every time in a journey in my life, especially when I commit to something that's hard, is that the things you need show up along the way on the journey. And most people look at things through a too foggy of a lens. And they'll say, well, I don't have the resources to make it. Yes, that's true. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to show up on the way. So people try to use logic to defend their fear of what they're trying to accomplish. Halfway through the run, the reason you feel like that you're going to make it forever is because you get hit with the endorphins. And you're like, now I feel amazing. The key is that you need to know, what are the strategies that you need to complete your journey? For me, the big commitment starts to look like that you make the commitments you need to that's going to pull you along when you're in the darkness of winter and when you feel like you can't take another step. Because no matter how it feels, you can always take one more step. It's why it's important you go and do hard things in your life. Because if you don't explore that map, if you don't expand the territory of what's possible in your life, it's not about the pin. It's about the smallness of the life that you end up living versus the joy and the beauty and the grandness that you can have. But if you think you're trying to be someone or get somewhere, you've invented a prison that's stealing your freedom. I'm gonna tell you a hot take, okay? Hot take. Our fourth leg got a month of qualification last month. Our fourth leg will go platinum this year. We're sponsoring personals. But hear me on this, because sometimes people, I almost broke that monitor. People sometimes take my words out of context. If I never hit another level in this business, I'm enough. My life is amazing. My wife is amazing. I come home and I have a house filled with peace and love. I have amazing children and amazing, healthy children and relationships. I have some of the best friendships in the world that I could ever ask for. From people backstage like Jackie and Louise and Vinny and Dana and Tony and all the different people on the team, to people like Ryan Ferringer and Anthony Spiteri that you don't know, they don't have anybody on their team. Because me and Cal were friends with Jackie when she was on our team, when she had nobody on our team, because we don't have friendships based on someone's success level. We have friendships based on who someone is. So we don't need a diamond pin to validate us. And yes, my goal and my hope is to have one of the biggest Amway businesses of all time. But whether I do or I don't doesn't invalidate my life. And I am not going to lose my peace and things that matter for some illusion that's imaginary in the future. And when you do that for yourself, thanks. When you do that, I hope you're clapping for yourself. Because when you do that, you miss days, weeks, months, and years of your life. I encourage you to use something, a tool I use in my life that's so impactful from the movie The Butterfly Effect, back in about 2006 with Ashton Kutcher. When you have young kids or you're building a business or you're in a marriage that's difficult, because I will say that the end of when you think you can't make it is where everything in my life that matters most has come from. In my marriage, in my business, in everything. But when you're in some of those tough times, maybe with your young kids or you're exhausted, or you're going out and your team quit, or you have a financial challenge, or there's a health or a sickness or a loss, whatever it may be, I encourage you to imagine for a second that you're 30 years in the future. and what you would trade to have 1 hour in the life you are right now with those little kids, with that person you're fighting with that might not be in your life anymore, with that situation to have the youth and the health. When the kids are crazy and things are stressed, if you go 30 years in the future, I'd trade a coliseum of people to spend an hour with my little kids one more time. And I think many of you would too. So use the perspective of how much you have in your life, because you can't pour out of an empty cup. Don't confuse material success or achievement with what matters truly in life. And they don't need to be mutually exclusive. You can have both if you're willing to continue to stay focused and keep your priorities in line. Callan, would you like to take these 39 seconds to talk to everyone?
That was great. I'll happily watch you speak, so it's fine. Do you want me to close?
No,
Okay.
tell them. That's it.
Yep. Well, there's 20 seconds, so. Sure. Okay.
Take a minute. We'll ask our friends.
A lot of times these weekends are where people make a big commitment. And I know from my own experience that some people can walk away from this weekend and say it was a life-changing weekend, while other people were so distracted in their own personal things that are going on that they missed all the messages. So I hope with a little bit of the weekend that's left, you can look outside of yourself and really get the messaging and hear the hearts of everybody, no matter what you have going on, no matter if you feel a certain way or there's conversations that you need to have with your upline or your crossline or whatever it is. I just hope, I have been there so many times where I've missed what would have been such an impactful weekend where people walk away and they have like life-changing things to talk about. And I was like, I couldn't tell you anything that happened. So I hope that you're dialed in and you can get the rest of the remaining weekend and really make this a life-changing weekend for you where you can make your own personal big commitment.
We believe in you. You have everything it takes. And that doesn't mean that you need to have 20 more people here to be enough. I expect more people than ever to have 20 more people here. But that doesn't define who you are. And if you can come to the point where you love who you are, regardless of what anyone else thinks, when you stop trying to justify to your friends and your family building the Amway business, when you stop having an argument with them about how much money you have or haven't made, nobody argues with you about going to a concert, not because it's entertainment, because you said you wanted to go and you did. When you tell your family you're doing something for money or an achievement, then maybe they're going to say, well, where's your achievement? But if you're doing it for the sake of doing it, the achievement becomes secondary. I believe that we're going to have the biggest system that's ever existed in Amway. I believe we're going to have the healthiest people, the healthiest mentality, and we're going to make a difference around the world. We love you. God bless you guys, and have a great weekend.
This is a copyrighted program of The Collective, powered by Markham Man Productions, affiliated with Marconet Incorporated. Duplication of this program is strictly prohibited. While the techniques and approaches suggested have worked for others, no one can guarantee that these techniques and approaches will work for you. In addition, we want to emphasize that success in this business does not come without hard work, for existing IBOs only, not for use with prospects.